welcome to my YouTube channel. Today I'm here to talk about 5 tricks to know before you accept that dessert job. 5 tricks to know before you accept that dessert job. So I'll give you a quick run of the highlights and then I'll explain in details. I hope that it will be as quick as possible. So first of all, you need a very good knowledge, a very good in-depth knowledge about sustainable recipes that are easy and quick to achieve. Second of all, you need to understand the location that you live in, all right, as a dessert caterer, to be able to understand the kind of desserts, the kind of desserts that would appeal to your guests, to the people living in that community with you. You need to understand dessert catering modalities, that is, what subsists around transporting your desserts, setup of your dessert station, successful execution of jobs, and basically how to put cost on your menu. Fourthly, you need to understand how to source for competent staff that would hold it down for you in your absence. So I'll explain that in detail. And lastly, you need to understand the specific factors to consider when you want to give a quote. So that has a breakdown. You have to consider some certain things. So when I'm coming back to that, then I will explain in details. So we'll go back from time. I just, wrote them down so that I can have a guide and just talk directly and be as fast as possible. So back to the first point. A good knowledge about sustainable recipes that are easy and quick to achieve. In saying that, what I mean is, you see, in the world generally, there are a lot of dessert recipes out there, different kinds of techniques, different kinds of quality, different kinds of standard. So you have to understand the ones that, especially for a new caterer, a baker that's just trying to delve into that arm of catering business, all right? You don't really need to, take on recipes that are too complicated, kind of recipes that will take too long hours to produce, that will be too overly technical for you to actually run by, okay? Because being a newbie in the business, you need to understand that you need to make it the simpler the better for you, because at the end of the day, you don't really need anything to discourage you. You need to keep it as simple as possible, okay? And in keeping it as simple as possible, it will even help you in how you factor in your costs, because definitely there are premium desserts, there are high-end desserts, there are regular desserts, okay? So you see, there are these kinds of Italian desserts and all of these very technical desserts that need extra care, extra equipment and all of that for them to retain their stability and their result, so that they can look as presentable as they ought to be, so that at the end of the day, you don't get to do all of those and then put off your guests, even in the process of trying to impress them. All right, so keep it simple. That's the first thing. Keep your recipe simple. If you're going on research for easily achievable dessert menus that you use to launch yourself into the business, whilst advancing it over time. All right, so that at least whilst they accept your brand and your services, then you can improve on it. Not like you're going to cater to any mediocre standard desserts, but just keep it simple. That's the summary of the first point. So secondly, I'm talking about the location you live in right now, all right? In my location right now, it's very obvious to me after working over the years, that they do like cake slices and, relatable desserts that they can eat, like cake and ice cream. Now, in another location, it might not be like that. Some people like some other kinds of desserts, okay? So you need to study your terrain and get familiar with what is acceptable. Me, for instance, now, when my clients come to me and I send out a menu list, some of them don't even understand some things listed in it, as simple as it may be, because they can't relate. So I give them the option of telling them that, okay, let me come up with a menu list for you from my long array of menu, all right, so that I can now suggest to you the most relatable, options that your guests would readily accept. Because I've personally been in some dessert events, in some general events, where I probably didn't even cater to desserts, but the response or the acceptance of guests to some kind of desserts might be like, oh, okay, what is this they're bringing? it might look nice, but they might just feel like, what is this? So you need to understand your location. It is very important, okay? Because if you don't understand your location, you end up trying to do what they might not accept. You don't know how overwhelmingly discouraging it will be if you actually, place out desserts that look strange to them, alright, and then they don't take it. It's more like all of your efforts in the mud. So try to do what you know that would be acceptable. You can ask questions, you see, because that's why I say no man is an island in this kind of business, all right? You can have people, mentors that you look up to ask questions that, okay, I'm in so state right now. What you think that they would accept? It's a kind of event, and trust me, kinds of event, so I need to chip that in. The kind of event is important. A dessert catering for a wedding party would slightly be more serious than a dessert catering for a birthday party, alright? Now, when you talk about birthday parties, now you talk about adult party, middle-aged party, or children's party. For instance, now, I'll just give you a little hint. For instance, now, if you're catering at a kid's party, you're expected to serve at least waffles on stick, because, look, even the presentation of that makes it appealing and makes it, playful enough for kids to even be interested in, okay? Getting to a wedding, that might not be applicable, except it's being requested for. There are other kinds of waffles, alright, that can be used, because it's going to be a gathering for more adults, as the case may be. So those are the little intricacies and nitty-gritties you have to look into, which nobody will have to tell you. You have to do that research by yourself, alright? And then you can ask some questions from people that have been in the business, so that it can help you to put you on track. All right, so I'll go to the third point now. The third point is basically about dessert catering modalities. This is like a third point. All right, the third point, like I said earlier, it's the dessert catering modalities. This is like a wrap up of everything. All right, but what I mean is, trying to break this down, is the transporting, the setup, and successful execution of job. This is going to be important for you to put into consideration before you put a cost on your menu. All right. Now, for instance, in transporting desserts, talking from experience, there is never any dessert catering we have ever catered to that we have had to run logistics once. That's because the nature of dessert is not like food, okay? It's dessert, it's so delicate, especially when there is ice cream and there are some kinds of dessert like chocolate mousse and those panna cotta that can actually melt over time. There has to be an initial setup, alright? And when I'm talking about setup, I mean the decorative setup, like a dessert station, a styled spot where you have to set up definitely you can't accommodate all your product on the setup, but I mean you bring them out in batches, in different setup stands, decorative crystal stands and all that, because you see what they say about appearance is very important, presentation is very important. All right, some people are not even interested in the taste, which is not an excuse for you not to produce quality kinds of desserts, okay? But I'm just trying to tell you that most people are very big, all right, on presentation, especially when it's a wedding. It's more like for aesthetics, okay? So you be in your station with the lights and the glitters and everything, flowers and all that. You try to work with the theme, of the wedding. It's a fairy tale theme, all right? It's a castle theme. It's all kind of things. It's a black tie. It's this, it's that, all right? Just always ask the event planner so that you don't get lost in everything. And imagine you coming in, ask for every time you want to get set up at any event, you have to factor in. Look at these are the questions you need to ask, okay? First of all, you ask them the colors of the day, or at least the undertone color. There are always undertone colors in every event. It's either silver, gold, bronze, or all those metallic colors, all right? So you try and work with that. You don't want all the ambience in the hall or the event center to be gold and you come in with silver. You look a bit out of place, all right? You have to work in sync with them so that even when guests come in, they don't necessarily have to know that you are like a loner, like you're on your own. It will blend in with the decoration in the entire hall, okay? Now, in talking about setup, all right, you have to go in the morning, early in the morning, to have your setup done. Now, at this point, your desserts can go in, all right, regardless of your location, even if you're on the island and your event is on the mainland. Except, of course, you have been able to invest in a good in a good vehicle like a bus that is like a freezer. All these kind of buses that have air conditioning, that they are majorly for transporting. And I'm not expecting, except you have good capital backing, okay, for you to have that at the beginning stage of your dessert catering. So I'm just talking in a factual sense, in a general sense now. And then you for you to be able to do once transportation, okay, you need to have a good freezer, which you need to transport to the venue. And trust me, let me put something through to you, okay. You get to a venue early in the morning, as early as 7 o'clock, to set up, so that at the time guests are coming in, your spot is well lit and set, and it looks so beautiful already, even without anything on it. And then by the time you walk in, if you are the one bringing in the edibles later and in the afternoon, it will just be to set it up with your clean, well dressed staff. So that's not going to be rowdy. You can't be caught up in logistics and start setting up mounting platforms and all of those things. When guests are seated, they'll take you as an unserious vendor. Alright, so that is the modalities for transportation. There are always 2 times. So even if you are going to do a transportation once, okay, you still have to run your logistics 2 times. If you don't have a freezer, you cannot come in with your ice cream in the morning. If you don't have your freezer, you can't come in with your dessert cakes in the morning. It will sweat out. And trust me when I say presentation is very important. Some people have very nice tasting, delicious cakes, but maybe you just present to a guest a soupy looking ice cream that's falling all over, spilling all over. Your cream or your cake is melting and crashing and collapsing and looking all sweaty and tired. Trust me, not every guest would want to eat that, okay? You don't want to go about convincing them it's nice, try it. I mean, just make it nice for them, so that then they can decide by themselves if it is nice. So going faster now, that's about setup. So if you're trying to factor in setup 2 times, you know that when you're costing for your transportation, you can't just cost it in a very ridiculously low price. Now, I'm not telling you to overbill, okay, because you see, in this kind of business, you have to make sure that you are able and ready to subsidize, even if it's going to cut into your profit a bit. If the total cost of transportation to go for a single event to be executed is 30,000, it will be fair enough to just say 20,000, because some people listen to some prices, no matter how you explain it to them, they'll be like, oh, why should they cost transportation? Are we traveling out of Nigeria? Do you understand? But it's not everybody that can understand the modality. So to avoid all of those headache and explanation, just cut it down. So you get your profit from production point. That's why me personally do not even do low numbers, because each production unit yields even enough. So I don't know what to do with the spills, because I'm in the habit of serving it all. So at least I ensure that you pay for a particular unit, and then I just let you have the rest. Okay, so, and then that's what I said about the setup. And then there's one more thing about setup, okay? There are 2 kinds of ways you can have your setup done. If you don't have any knowledge or any prior knowledge of decorating a dessert station, in order not to make your dessert station look like a shrine or something that would even put people off as against even endearing them to your station, you can engage the services of a decorator. There are freelance decorators. I'm not talking about the proper decorators, all right? People that can just put you through and do it, and you just charge them a little fee. Now factor that into your cost too. But for me, I don't employ services of such people. I have my staff that I've trained over time. So that's why I said in the beginning stage. In the beginning stage, I don't assume that you have staff that can decorate, okay? So at that point, you need to do all these things and put in place. So whilst you are employing people to do that, you paying them to do it, your staff can watch closely, so that after they do about twice or thrice, you expect your staff, if they are competent staff, to be able to replicate whatever the professional decorator has done. And you can also talk to the decorator that is handling the entire hall, you get, to be able to do it not for a free service, but at an additional cost. So instead of boring you with all of these things, I'm just trying to tell you that those are the things you have to put in place. That's just number 3 point, okay? So I talked about transporting, I talked about setup, and successful execution. Successful execution, I'll just go around that one quickly. It has to do with how you set up and design your plates. you have to have your neat trays, you have to have your neat plates, you have to have your neat cutleries, all right? You have to have your gloved hands, you have to have your staff looking very tidy, hair properly done, uniform well, fitted, and no odors. Trust me, it is food business. People are very finicky. I personally am so finicky when it's about food. I get all sorts of ideas. If the person handing me a food or a meal at a party is looking untidy, so those are the things you have to put into consideration. Now, in putting that into consideration, your staff uniform is not going to fall from heaven, right? You have to buy it. You can't rent uniform. You have to buy face scarves, aprons, whatever it is, or make them, all right? That is also coming at an additional cost. So that's why I said dessert catering has a lot of intricacies that you have to sit down and actually highlight, weigh your pros and cons, and know how to go about it. So let's go to number 4 now. Competent staff. Like I said earlier on, you see your competent staff, they're like the life wire of the business. Aside, you can't be everywhere at the same time. Like I told you that there's a double that is not possible for you to actually execute a dessert catering at one stage at one shot. You have to have like 2 mobilizations of logistics. Okay, so let's take for instance that your staff has been sent out in the morning to set up, secure a spot, because for weddings, for instance, everybody scouts for spots. Even if they keep it for you, you have to scout for a spot, a good spot, because if you don't, it's in it's at your disadvantage. All right, so you go there early, your staff are there. Now, at the end of the day, your staff are there and they've set up, they sent you pictures and everything. You have to go down again, all right, to take the desserts that have been prepared. Reason why I told you that it is even better for you to make the easy ones, so that the ones you are going to have to work on at the venue won't be any more complicated, aside piping cream on it, putting toppings that won't smudge in transit, cutting them up so that they don't slide off in transit. You probably just partition them, all right, and then when you get there, you go with your knife, your professional knife, to just cut them up in clean squares, so that you don't get a situation whereby there's a bump or gallop and then it tumbles, and you have to start getting agitated. How do you do a damage control? All right, so you will be back at your bakery or your shop doing all of those. They will be at the venue getting things ready. I mean, you have to register your presence at every dessert you cater. You need to register your presence at the initial stage, at the early hours, okay? That itself is a good impression for your brand. When you register your presence rather, even if you're not there on time, because trust me, desserts don't come in until about evening, because they come after food. They even come after small chops and the likes of it, because it's always like, the relaxed kind of thing, sweet teas and all that, and they should actually be really sizable and not too big, because you can imagine a guest has had main course, appetizer, snacks, desserts, small chops, and then you bring a large chunk of desserts to the front. It can put them off. Make it very cute and small, not too small, sizable and appealing. They want to just dive right in and finish it at the stand, not like a meal and they're eating to a stupor. So that's what your competent staff will do. They will be there, well dressed, whilst you are coming down to the venue, right? So they are putting up an appearance for you. So that is why you need people that are clean, decent, well scented, neatly dressed, nice shoes, nice haircut, nice hairdo, nice everything in place, serviettes in place, gloves in place. Everything is on ground. So even if the planner or whoever is coordinating that event is trying to ask where you are or where are the edibles, it's easier to just say it's on the way, they're coming through, because everybody knows desserts can be set up from early in the morning. In fact, some meals can be set up like Chinese from early in the morning, so talk more of desserts. So so you need your competent staff. You can't do it by yourself. No man is an island in dessert catering. Trust me, you don't want to do that. You break down. So the last point, this is going to take a little bit of time because I'm going to highlight some things, all right? The 5th point here is the specific factors to consider when you want to give a cut. I think I said something about that, so I'm just going to digress a little bit more on that, okay? First of all, your service charge. You have to there's a breakdown that you can use, all right, to that you can send out as a quote, like your email quotation and everything for any client that requires your services, all right. So you have the option of breaking it down. For instance, I'll just give you blank figures, all right. For instance, now you can say you want to charge for service charge. Your service charge basically is supposed to be for your staff, all right. You can't pay your staff from your profit. You need to pay your staff. It's more like staff charges, because except you are using staff like your normal regular staff that are on salary, jobs that they're on salary with you. If you're using the freelance one, you need to pay them per job. Me personally don't have a salaried staff for my dessert. I don't like to overwhelm anybody. So if I'm actually doubling somebody that's working with me in my bakery to come in with me to an event, there's going to be like a burnout. There's going to be exhaustion, and I won't get the result. So I get my staff from a particular source, all right. I've been using them over time. You just train them to your standard, so they just know that for every time, it's just the way you make cakes and there's a delivery guy. The guy might not resume every day. When you have orders, he picks up and delivers. So when I have any dessert catering, I just contact them. I pay them per job. So I expense some of my service charge as to paying them, all right. Then you can decide. I'm not telling you to go and be telling your clients that you want to pay service charge with your staff, but I'm just trying to tell you what it is when you say you are paying service charge. It's basically for your staff and for small logistics. Secondly, damages. In dessert catering, it is unavoidable. I'm telling you that with no iota of mincing of words, okay? Tools must break. Listen, your items, your utensils would go missing per event, especially when you have beautiful plates and cutleries. Some guests will carry it away, not in the place of running you down. They like it. Some will take it, eat it on the go, and just toss it somewhere. Whilst doing that, you can get that plate back. So if you don't factor that kind of situation into everything you charge, you are going to run at a massive loss, because one day you will check your pantry and realize that you have no more plates. You will check your pantry and realize that maybe you started out with 500 plates, you might be left with 80, 100, because for everyone that gets missing, if you don't put in place a little charge, a little percentage of whatever it is you're charging to set it apart, to do your inventory at the right time, maybe every month, depending on how much dessert catering you do, inventory every month to know how much is missing and how you're going to send your staff or whoever is in charge of that to go back and source for more as replacement, you are going to get stranded. You will get stranded, and when you get stranded, it will be like you're going round and round in circles. You have to go and buy in large bulk again when you could have easily topped up. So in that case, always have a contact of your supplier. All right, they can always supply to you. I need 1 dozen extra. I lost it. I need 3 dozens. Is here available? You just bring it and then you just add it up. So you don't need to run at a total loss. Now you're not using your money for that. It has to come from, you see the way rentals charge for damages, and some of them do non-refundable damages because maybe they hire out glass and all that. It can chip, it can break, and it's going to come back to them and they have to replace it, because if they don't replace it, you won't see anything else to use at another time. So that's for damages. So you need, even if it is a stipend, all right, your tools must break, so you need to cost for that as well. All right, your running cost, that is the cost of getting other materials. For example, petty stuff like serviettes and all of that, that is not even major. Your rentals. If you are somebody that does setups and decorative setup, like a full station styling, I would guarantee you that it's almost so difficult for you to have all your decorative stands and setups and all that, except you have just the basics like the table covers, the sequence table covers, some things, regular stands that you can always use up in a creative manner, so for it not to look like same thing, the display glass and all of those. But there are some things you can have, like flowers, like flowers, like antiques, like decor, like lanterns, like all these accents that can make your candles, candle holders, candelabras, all those things that can make your setup stand out. You need to rent them per job. Now, where do you get the money to rent that? It's not from your pocket. It is from the client's money. Now, you're not going to tell your client, like I said earlier, that I'm going to rent. Just tell them you're charging for your service charge, for your damages, for your running costs, and for your transportation. Definitely for every job that is done in anywhere, every reasonable client knows that transportation has to be charged. The only thing you can do for them is to have a subsidized cost. We're going to the mainland, we're charging 2,000 naira. I'm just telling you, oh, it's not possible. I'm just telling you, it depends on your location. We're going to the mainland, 2,000, within the island, 1,005. 500 naira. I'm just trying to tell you, you can definitely not charge the same thing. So your location, so before you give a quote, you ask your client, what is your location? Oh, okay, it's on the mainland. This is the exact amount I cost, because I'm not the one that will tell you that, because I don't know how you run your transportation. You can have a bus, you just need to fuel it and pay your driver. You might need to use Uber services or something. You might need to rent a full vehicle for the entire day. So it depends on how you run your transportation. But you have to be considerate enough to be able to give them some subsidized rates. All right, so I think that's all about it, but I'll just give you some final notes now for you to understand. Note that you can decide to send a breakdown of these highlighted points in the point 5 to clients for clarity and accountability, for those clients that want to understand the exact nitty-gritty of how you're spending their money. Or you can just combine it together as a single charge. For me personally, I don't go through breaking it down like this. I just call it my service charge. All right, and I'll just say I'm charging so amount for my service charge, which includes cost for damages, running costs, transportation. It's more professional like that. You can't tell your client, I'm charging for transportation, this is the amount. I'm charging for running costs, this is the amount. I'm charging for that, like that. It's going to be too much of a task for them to break down for you, right? Except for those that don't even have time. Just so you let me have your quote. So in saying this, like, okay, I said that already. I think I've already said what is here already. So yeah. So I'm saying, so, and you have to note some things that will spur you to be gingered, to be motivated to do what you have to do to keep yourself in this line of business. You have to know that in the initial stage, you must be ready to make sacrifices cost-wise. I mentioned that earlier. Pending when your clients are willing to pay. Nobody really wants to pay hugely or a lump sum amount of money for somebody that's just starting dessert, and they just want to, like, oh, let's just see what she can offer. Alright, so for those times when you have to go through that stage of trying to impress or convince them that you're up to the task, you need to be able to let go of the excess profit. Like, just let it go and know that it's part of the sacrifice you have to make. Now, on a final note, I'll just let you know that if you are somebody that really wants to go into dessert catering, like really, I'm not scaring you here, but you have to understand that there are a lot of late nights, a lot of early mornings, intense running costs, the word intense is on caps, intense running costs. All right, because at the end of the day, for instance, now you give a quote to a client and they pay. You go into the market or into the stores to get some supplies, and it's more expensive than what you already envisaged it to be. You have to bear the cost. You can't go back to the client and say, see, ma, this is not the price I got. You need to add more. That is highly unprofessional. So, like I said, you'll be frustrated a lot of times. There are some clients that are difficult. There are people that may not understand you. There are events that you go that everything might not be as organized as you think it will be, so you'll be frustrated. You have to just keep your head up high. All right, keep it up high and know that it's for a common goal. It's for a result that you're envisaging. Even if, let me tell you something, even if talking about this now, I'm trying to remember how my first dessert catering was. I can't even remember. Like, I was just confused. Really, I was confused. But I came out strong, trust me. So anybody can do it. You are going to leave room for mistakes. You are going to make mistakes and not stay down. You are going to get up and say, I did it, but it's not good enough, but I'm going to do it again. I did it, it's not as impressive. I did it, I didn't plate it well. It's not as nice. My ice cream wasn't so solid. But now I would go back to my drawing board and know, okay, how then do I make my ice cream hold up to I'm sorry. The ice cream I made for the first dessert, oh my god, it was like water. It was like water. I'm telling you this on a lighter note. You have to understand. I'm telling you this in a very honest point of view so that you know that people make mistakes, people have setbacks, but it's the motivation you have to get up again and do better. The previous dessert you do must not be better than the next one you do. Hold that as a watchword. The previous one must never be better. It must only keep going better. Alright, you have to just keep going better. Is there anything I'm missing out? So like I said, it takes having good measures in place. That's all I've said. Good and beautiful spreads and displays. Another level of patience, like a higher level of patience, an ability to receive criticism with good faith to break into a dessert catering arm of cake business. People will criticize you, especially if it's not really up to standard. Just say I'm sorry if your services is not up to standard, and promise to do better. Alright, because word of mouth is very important. You cannot have a low shock absorber to criticism so that bad words won't spread about you. Always embrace your clients, apologize even when it's not necessary. The customer is always right. Always make them number one priority in anything you're doing. Alright, so that at least if your big picture is being a big dessert vendor, alright, you will be able to achieve it. So I really do hope that this session was insightful, helpful, eye-opening, and knowledgeable for you all to understand. And I really do hope that I was able to address some issues that might have been bothering around dessert catering for some bakers. Alright, I remain your favorite girl, Fimiesdessertsville. So the next time I come with my TED talk again, stay tuned. And don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel, click the like button, and just always stay close. I have surprises coming very soon, so don't go too far away. I love you all. See you next time.